Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. How many years now coaching? Because you started, I think, in 2003 in the middle school level. So what, 20 years? And then how many as a head coach?
12 as a head coach. This is my 12th year as a head coach, 20 all in. Again, I've had an interesting story on how I got here. I don't know that you've even heard it before, but when I say I got here by being the luckiest guy alive, when I graduated from college from East Central University, first year out, I applied my hometown and didn't get a job. And so I was a manager of a Hibbett Sport for I wouldn't even say a year. I'd say about 9 months. And working that Black Friday sale, I was like, I am not coming back to retail next year. So I didn't really understand the way that things work here in Texas. Like, you want to start applying for jobs in March. Well, I started applying in late May, early June. People have already gotten their staffs together. I had applied in LISD, didn't know anything about them except for they had a great rating on Google or whatever search. I was probably using like Bing or some old search engine, Ask Jeeves or something. And so I had applied and I didn't hear anything back from them. And I saw that there was a Dallas ISD job fair coming open. And this was we were into July. And so I was getting nervous because I hadn't heard anything from anybody. And the weekend I was supposed to go to the DISD job fair, I got a call that said they had somebody that left late and they let them out of their contract and they'd like to bring me in. And so I said, that's great. I'm coming there for a job fair anyway. I went in on that Friday and interview with Assistant Soup, interview with Dr. Nauman that was at Lakeview, interview with Brent Davis that was the head coach at the Colony High then, head football coach, coordinator. And then the next day I went to the DISD job fair and I told my mom, I applied to like maybe 6 places at that job fair. And I said, whoever calls me on Monday, that's where I'm going. Like, I'm taking the job because I'm not waiting around. I can't be back here. I got to get out of this. I'm from a town of 18,000 in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma. So she understood, and I got a call, I want to say at like 9:15, 9:30 from LISD. They asked me if I wanted the job. I said, absolutely. I didn't even know what I was teaching. And then about 30 minutes later, I got a call from a middle school in DISD, and I said, thank you, but I've already accepted. And the rest is history, man. Linked up. You talk about just people watching out for you and things breaking your way at the right time. I got a chance to, without ever meeting him, work with Coach Thomas. And, just didn't interview with him, just kind of like, I got the job and one of the basketball spots was open. And I give all the credit in the world to Tyron Lee, who's the first basketball coach I actually met when I got to Texas. And we've been friends ever since. And we talked a little bit and he was like, well, hey, coach basketball with us. So I was the head track coach and assistant, basketball coach. And the rest is history, man. Just a lot of things, a lot of good people, crossed my path and things broke my way.
Man, love that story. That's awesome. I love getting to talk with head coaches, and you've been at a few different schools. So that's at your third school or third district. And what's one of the best things that you've borrowed lately?
One of the best things I've borrowed lately is, so coming to LISD was a bit of a culture shock. And because I'd been in Irving for 10 years and people tell you it's going to be the same kind of kids, but kids everywhere are going to be a little bit different. And so I got here and I was expecting something that wasn't necessarily like I thought I was going to be dealing with a different demographic or whatnot. And I got here and it was, not what I was expecting. And I had just had to Bruce Lee it and be like the water and adjust. So these kids up here, man, they have cars and they have interest outside of basketball. And for 10 years, my guys at MacArthur were ball is life guys. Like if they weren't at home, they were in the gym. And I had to readjust and learn that, hey, there is more to life than just high school basketball. And these guys like to go bowl and they have jobs to help pay their gas and car insurance. Like it's just a different set. It's been good, no doubt, but I've had to learn to be like the water a little bit and not be so rigid.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear kind of how you handled that, because I think it's always a shock when you realize that your players, and it happens to coaches at different times. For me, was my first year at Naaman Forest with Jeff Clarkson when I realized from one of the seniors that he didn't want to go play college basketball, and it blew me away. I thought every high school kid wanted to. That's why they were doing this. And so, how did you handle that when you realized, wow, these dudes like, this isn't number one priority? Did you adjust the way that you spoke to them? Because I think as coaches, it's very easy for us to be passive aggressive and to just throw out little comments. How did you handle that?
Actually, I had my first experience with that last year. I came in and there was a kid, 6'3", 6'4", I thought could play at a good Division II, could shoot it, could post it, team guy, rebound it. And he thought he wanted to play early on as well. And when I got here, and the way, I'm an in-your-face, no-nonsense coach, and I'm going to coach you hard, but I'm going to love you harder. And it took an adjustment for him to understand that I'm not just, into him for no reason. And he decided a little before season that, like, hey, if this is what it really takes, because I kept talking to him about the next level and what it takes and the grind. And he was coming in before morning and he was staying late and he was shooting the ball. And I talked to him about, like, this is what it's like forever until the ball doesn't bounce anymore. And he decided it wasn't for him. And we played fall league. And I want to say that when he wanted to play college basketball, he was always pressing. I got to be perfect. I got to be perfect. When he made the decision that he didn't want to play at the next level and it became fun again and not a job, is when it both clicked for both of us. So everything that I was asking him to do, he knew it was going to be the last time he was going to do it. So he embraced it and walked towards it rather than run from it. And he had a great senior year. That kid is one of the toughest, probably the toughest kid I've ever coached physically. At the end of the season, during the school day, he was in a boot walking around. He was getting heavily taped for games. I want to say it was the Marcus game. He went up, got clipped, fell on his face, eye swole shut. And it was that weird thing to where we had to play back-to-back days at the end of the season. Yeah. So I was like, man, we're not going to have him for the Hebron game, and we need that game to force a play in. And they got him over there at halftime and in between quarters and timeout with cold spoons, pressing his eye down. They've got him taped up.
Cut me, Mick.
Yeah. Real rocky situation, man. And that guy comes out, and normally I'd be mad because he broke off a set, but we were running action for a last second shot, and he broke my set off and pulled about a 27-foot three and hit it. And, he was unapologetic about it, and I wasn't mad at it at all. So, I say all that to say, man, I think there is comfort that understanding that there's no tomorrow. I think if you can wrap your brain around that and enjoy today for what it is, and you understand that I have to get everything out of this moment that it has to offer, I think that can be freeing for kids and coaches.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal. Like if we can get, it doesn't matter what their aspirations are, if we can get them just to show up and give their very, very best, and to train and practice that way. I also think like there's still a purity in high school basketball, because for a majority of them, they know it's the end. Like there isn't, like you and I, we had those carrots dangling out in front, to keep moving, keep doing things. If you had, I guess maybe a challenge is for us as coaches to not just appreciate and enjoy those guys that want to play in college, but also appreciate and validate the ones that are only doing it for this experience. Like the best player we've ever had at Grapevine Faith, his sophomore year told me I had just gotten this job, and I thought, this is our first college player, but since I've been here and since the sophomore year, he just didn't want to play. He watched his older sister play, not a great experience. And I said, well, hey, just don't close any doors. But the guy worked so hard. And I mean, scored 2,700 points, 435 made threes. And it was just like, never once wanted to play. And it's just inspiring. Like he was doing it just to be a great high school player and to maximize his time. And I tell players this all the time. His final tweet after our last game his senior year, he said, I have no regrets. I loved every minute of it. Like, boom. That's it. Like, that's really what we want. The college stuff and playing later on, that's great. And we'll help them. But I think that's the goal.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right on that. I always tell our guys, this should not be the highlight of your life, but it should be a bright spot in it.
Yeah.
And you should walk away from it with understanding how to function in relationships, understanding how to work hard when you don't want to, and understanding how to function within a team setting. So if you can do that and leave, it will be a bright spot in your life, but it shouldn't be the highlight of your life.
No doubt they play a big part in that, of it being a bright spot. But how much do coaches, how much do we play a part in them having that type of memory of playing basketball in high school?
I think we have a huge part in it, or at least we should. Again, every team has guys on it that don't get yelled at much and that they just do the right thing, right? And everybody's like, well, that's, Coach Saman's favorite guy, or that's Coach Martin's favorite guy. He's never on him like he's on me. And I think in those moments, like, you've got to really, really work to build relationships with guys that aren't going to give you much production. And they're not going to have the same experience as a kid that hits the game-winning basket, but they have to have a real experience. And the real experience is adjusting to, how do you become a great teammate when you're not the guy that's getting the ball, or you're not getting in this game? And if you can teach those guys the value of learning that lesson, then you've made a great impact as a coach.
And a big piece to that too is the relationship piece. And I think you've already mentioned it, but my first year, I asked Coach Thomas, what would you have done differently? And this is just 16 years ago. I just wanted to know. I'm starting new, Coach. What's something that you would do over? And he said, Matt, I would spend more time with guys, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 on the roster, getting to know them better and investing in them. Because without realizing it, man, we can spend the majority of our time not just in front of them, but off the floor, thinking about that top rotation. And then another challenge, maybe we can help players look back fondly, because you and I both have either our teammates from high school, or we've heard the people that said, man, it was awful. Like I hated every second of it. I couldn't wait for it to be over. And man, like that's not, I would imagine whatever coach they're talking about, like that wasn't his goal, but if we're not careful, it can happen under our watch.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. I mean, building a relationship with those guys, you've got to find something outside of basketball that's a common interest. And mine is usually sneakers. Like, I'm listening to the same music I listened to 20 years ago. They're not interested in it. Shockingly, I am like totally video game averse. Interesting fun fact about me: I have never bought a video game system. Never in my life, like from my personal purchase.
Yeah,
I got a Nintendo in like 1989, and I think my mom bought me the first PlayStation. But after that, like I've just never been a video game guy. So I kind of connect with those guys through sneakers, things like that, and try to find something. Sneakers and food, man, that's my thing.
I like that. You had mentioned favorites. One of my favorite times of directing with PGC in that point guard college week was on Wednesday nights. We would allow the parents to come in and watch that 3-hour module, which was an hour in the classroom and then 2 hours on the floor. And I love that what we just did a normal classroom like we would normal, but what the topics we were covering, it was really good stuff for the parents to hear. And one of those topics was favorites. And you could almost feel like when I bring it up, you could feel the parents like, oh no, you are, as a coach, you are not supposed to, you're not allowed to have favorites. I think favoritism is bad, but favorites, like, I mean, I have 3 dogs. One of them is my favorite. I love them all, but the great point that we used to tell the players and the parents was, coaches have favorites, but it's your right to become a favorite. So you got to figure out what are the things that you need to do to be the favorite of your coach, not a brown noser, not a kiss up, but like in your opinion, coach, what are some of the things that make a player a favorite for you?
I encourage my players to respectfully challenge me. Like, I want to know, like, coach, we should have this guy in right now because they're doing this, or this is how they're playing the ball screen. Why are we running this? I want to be respectfully challenged. Now, I don't want you losing your mind and having a meltdown and a fit. Yeah. But if we're in a timeout and we have a heated debate on something, I am pretty prone to listen to the player. And if it fails, I don't hold it against them because I'm not out there. They're seeing something a little different than I'm seeing. And if we've done what we needed to do in practice, I should trust that player. So I have a player right now that, we get into it. He's graduating and we get into it. And I absolutely love that kid. And we have a great relationship all times of the day except for practice. I don't go in on him during a game because I understand his personality. That's not how you get the best production out of him. I wouldn't embarrass him or chastise him to prove to a bunch of people I don't know that I'm coaching him hard. I mean, he's going to make some mistakes, but I understand where his head at is when he makes those mistakes. And during practice, we wear each other out. And I am totally okay with it. I am okay with him coming in a bad mood because I've been on him for 3 straight days and he's anticipating a 4th and he's looking for a confrontation. And I told, those guys, I said, you guys think me and this player love each other and it's, ice cream and cake every day, but y'all don't see the talks in my office. Like, you don't see each other challenging each other. And I think as an adult, you have to be open to the ideas of your players, and it's going to make you a better coach.
I think that takes a lot of security on your part, though. Why doesn't every coach view that way or think that way? I think maybe there's a little bit of a fear from coaches of being challenged by players. So where did that security come from to basically kind of open yourself up to that from your players?
I've got a saying I live by, and I use it probably too much. I know my daughter is tired of hearing it, but it's, do you want to be right or do you want to get it right? And, if you concentrate on you being the one that got it right, you're going to get a lot of stuff wrong because you can't see the entire picture. And what does getting it right look like? Well, getting it right looks like achieving the goals you've set before the game or before the season. And that's ultimately what we're trying to do. Like, I'm not getting any pats on the back if we're only doing it my way and it's not being successful. I want to be successful in totality. So that's kind of where that comes from. I want to get it right. I don't necessarily need to be right. And I mean, 20 years into it, man, I'm not really trying to prove to anybody that I know what I'm doing by now. Like if I don't know what I'm doing by now and y'all figure it out, that means y'all made 19 mistakes in a row. So.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.